critical times. And we welcome our viewers, our listeners, to this outside broadcast coming to you live from the Military Museum out in Johannesburg. I am Inayat Wadi. I'm going to be the program director for this evening. And as we always begin, and we seek the mercy and the blessings of the Almighty, and to start off with a short dua, a prayer, and a recitation from the Quran. And we'd like to call upon our distinguished Maulana Ndlovu to come forward and to open up the program with a dua.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام وإليك يرجع السلام، فحينا ربنا بالسلام وأدخلنا دارك دار السلام برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا نثني ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك يا أرحم الراحمين. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. يا رب الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا وفقنا لما تحب وترضى واجعلنا سببا لمن اهتدى يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا وفقنا لما تحب وترضى. ربنا يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث. اللهم اجعلنا من المكمولين، اللهم اجعلنا من المكمولين، اللهم اجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين. يلا unite our hearts يا الله. يلا make this work of today, Allah, to bring more easy, Allah. Yalla bless us during this time, Ya Allah. Yalla remove all the difficulties in South Sudan, in Sudan, Ya Allah. In the whole universe, Ya Allah, bring ease and bring your mercy, Allah. Yalla remove all the impediments, all the catastrophes that are happening today, Allah. Yalla make it easy for the people of Sudan, the people who are suffering. Make it easy for the mothers. Make it easy for the children who are going through all of these difficulties, Ya Allah. Yalla, we are here today, Ya Allah, to make an impact, Ya Allah. Let this gathering, Ya Allah, be a gathering of positive impact, Ya Allah. Let our heart unite, Ya Allah. Let us unite in one, in unison, Ya Allah, with your message, Ya Allah. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Shukran to Maulana Daud Ndlovu from the Soweto Muslim Association. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you. And just before we get into the program and the structure of the program, just to give you an idea, as Salam Media, our ethos has been built on a strong foundation of humanitarian journalism. And since inception, this has been our goal to pursue humanitarian journalism because of the various crises that are impacting right across the entire world. And we're not talking only about the global crisis, we're talking about local crises as well. So we look at humanitarianism in its totality. And for us at Salam Media, particularly in the face of oppression, in the face of what we see playing around the world, whether we are looking at the African continent, whether we're looking at the subcontinent, Kashmir, Palestine, you name it, and Salam Media has been at the forefront. And this evening's gathering is just the beginning, once again, to highlight another great challenge of our time. And this great challenge is the genocide that is unfolding in Sudan. In the last 2 years, we have been relentless in our coverage of the Gaza genocide. We have done a lot of work in the last 2 years. We have brought in a lot of people. We brought in a lot of guests across the length and breadth of the country to highlight and to raise awareness with regards to what has been happening in Gaza. And hopefully tonight will be the beginning. I know we have got a smallish audience, but we know it's not only about numbers, it is about people who are committed, people who are dedicated to the cause. And since the inception of Islam as well, and the Battle of Badr, where the numbers were very, very small, but that paved the way for the greater message to reach the length and the breadth of the world. So tonight, hopefully, this will be the beginning to raise that awareness. But also, more importantly, we need to turn our attention to the world, because this is what the world has been exposed to another genocide, a war that has long been forgotten. And it is sad that it is taking place on the African continent, and the world has forgotten what is taking place. But it's also, at the same time, we need to understand what the undercurrents are. A war that has been exported, it has been funded by money, it has been funding mercenaries, and these mercenaries have been causing chaos and mayhem across the length and breadth of Sudan. We have read about the documented mass killings that have been taking place, the burning, the looting, the raping, the barbarism, the brutality that has been unfolding. And when we saw al-Fashir finally fall, we've seen how witnesses have been talking about men being dragged out of their homes, women and children executed in the streets. Now, this is the devastation and the destruction that is unfolding in Sudan as we speak right now. And as we have seen in the last 18 months, when the city was under siege and the rapid support forces then came in, and this is when they embarked on this killing spree. It is also against this background where Salam Media, on our ongoing projects that we have undertaken, and we have made a commitment that we will undertake this project of Sudan. We will take it across the length and breadth of South Africa. We will take it through our airwaves. We will take it through our airwaves, and we will reach the rest of the African continent and to many other parts around the world. So that is a promise that we at Salam Media are making to you, to the guests out here, and also to the people of Sudan. We will not forget you, we will not forsake you, and we will be with you all the way until you achieve your freedom, until you achieve your liberation, and until you take your rightful place on the African continent as a sovereign country, a country that does not require, a country that has so much promise in terms of mineral wealth, a country that has so much promise in terms of agricultural land. Sudan, we know, has the potential of being the breadbasket of Africa. It can actually feed the entire African continent. But once again, this has been exported by external players. We have seen what has taken place in Gaza as well, the exporting of the genocide and those that have been complicit. And equally, we see what is playing out in Sudan as well, those that have been strongly exposed, those that have been hypocritical right throughout, where they deny their involvement, but they have been hypocritical. And all of them, like in the case of Gaza, they are being exposed. So our promise to you, ladies and gentlemen, is we as Salam Media are with you throughout and all the way. Ladies and gentlemen, just to begin the program this evening, and we've got two speakers, and we've got Professor Amira Osman, who is obviously well known to many of us here in South Africa. She will be presenting a PowerPoint presentation. She is a Sudanese South African architect, a researcher, an academic, activist, public speaker, author, and professor of architecture at the Tshwane University of Technology. So she will be doing a PowerPoint presentation. We also would like to welcome our other honorable speaker this evening, Brother Ramadan Ahmed, who is the editor of SudanHorizon.com, an online English newsletter focusing on Sudan affairs, a political analyst, and also a journalist and a conference interpreter. So to both of you, our honored speakers, guest speakers, we welcome you as well. Professor Amira, the platform is all yours.
Thank you so much again to Salam Media for caring about us. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thanks for that amazing introduction. And thanks for remembering Al-Fashir. Can you all hear me clearly? Okay, thank you so much. I'm not going to speak too much about Al-Fashir, but I want Al-Fashir to be in all of our minds. And I would like us to keep on mentioning the name Al-Fashir. And I also offer my condolences to everyone from Al-Fashir, from Darfur, special condolences, or especially to Russia, with us in the audience, but it's also all of our pain. Darfur and Al-Fashir are very much intertwined with the larger Sudanese community. It's not an isolated region. And we are all very heartbroken. So the fact that you are assisting us with this dissemination really means a lot. If possible, I would like to dim the lights. So let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. And in telling you the story about myself, I'm hoping that you will get to learn a little bit more about Sudan. So I grew up in that house on the top left, on the Sudan University campus. And I remember many times when I would go to the library of the Sudan University campus on the top right to study when we had exams. And the bottom image is an image of the campus of the Sudan University. When I entered as a new student to the University of Khartoum, when one of our first meetings was at this building, the exam hall on the University of Khartoum campus. We have incredible memories of these campuses. Please know that they are destroyed. Everything has been occupied, looted, and this particular building has been destroyed by the militia. I come from a context that's unique in that urbanization in Sudan many times happens, the nucleus of all urban areas, little villages, big cities, all happen around the burial place of a sheikh. You can see those conical tombs, and or a center of religious learning. So that's a very unique pattern of urbanization to the Sudan. A little bit north from where my parents originate, on the River Nile, are the remains of some of the ancient civilizations of the Sudan. Marawi, Kush, a lot of these on the Nile. And it's quite uncelebrated. It's just there in the desert. The villagers roam around it, and there are very little signage, and there are no tourists, or very few tourists in that area, even prior to the war. It's very much a forgotten context. A little bit more about myself is, this is my parents' house in Khartoum. And I have often shown this, and I've said that one story is not more or less important than another. But every story of war is important nevertheless. So like other houses in our neighborhood and across Khartoum, and indeed across Sudan, this building was occupied, looted, and even though, thank you. And even though the army has taken this area over from the militia, people are still unable to go back. The destruction of infrastructure, and if a whole neighborhood is no longer there, what do you go back to? Very close to us is, or was, my friend Gada Kadoda, who was one of the very last people to leave the neighborhood. And when she was terrorized out of her home, she took a photo and also a photo of her dog. And she left a message on the door saying, there is no gold, there is no money, there are just books and memories in this house. And she left. Like all other homes, it's been plundered and looted, and in many times destroyed as well. So as you can see, I myself come from Khartoum, the capital of the Sudan. Khartoum is at the meeting point of the Blue and the White Nile. And as one person on Facebook said, we owe so much to Khartoum. We were made by Khartoum, and Khartoum made us who we are. So I show here an aerial photograph of Khartoum to just show you the uniqueness of that location, as well as a couple of images that I took of that meeting point of the two Niles. And I just want to draw your attention that the building I took the photo from, or the photos from, is destroyed almost beyond recognition, as are the buildings that I am looking out onto in this image. Everything has been destroyed. So when the war broke out and the city was occupied, I wrote a love story, Let Me Tell You About Khartoum, which went on to be translated and published in several publications internationally. At the bottom, so you can see it's a city that's been destroyed, communities uprooted. At the bottom, the amazing initiatives of young Sudanese who are trying to document what was there, what is remaining, and just to capture as part of our heritage, these buildings and these locations that have been destroyed. I've also published The Creation and Destruction of Khartoum, a modern African city, which has also gone on to be translated and republished numerous times. And also I was intrigued that the media got very interested in a burning tower. I don't know why, with all the destruction. I think it's quite an ugly tower, to be honest, but it is also part of the city, and it just drew a lot of media attention for some reason, but everything has been destroyed. So as I said, I originate from this area. You can see on the left, you can see Khartoum, my parents a little bit further north, my husband a little bit further south. And I've always been very conscious of my link to the Nile. I've always been very conscious of that heritage. One of the things that I became more alert to as the war broke out was this link with the Sahel region. So you can see we're at this intersection, north-south and east-west, and the Sahel being the region spanning from the Atlantic Ocean to the Red Sea. So our fate and our history and our culture very much linked to this zone. Could I possibly have some water? Thank you. Thank you so much. So my husband, who likes to joke a lot, we were at Hajj, and I said to him, these are our fellow Hujjaj from the Niger. And my husband immediately said to them, so did Himeti, for those of you that know, Himeti is the rebel leader, the militia leader. He said to them, did Himeti tell you to come and invade Khartoum? And in the end, it became a bit of a discussion, and we laughed, and they prayed for both our countries. But that link with the Sahel region became very distinct as the war progressed. So in a diagram, a little bit of what I've shared. So that's the meeting point of the two Niles. A little bit north, you can see all the historical political centers, as well as Sinar on the south, a Muslim kingdom that I believe very much shaped the Sudanese identity that we know today. So these are the political centers. And then on the west, you can see the Four Kingdom, which is the present-day Darfur, and Al-Fashir is in Darfur. Okay, so that, I hope that diagram gives you an idea of the region. Okay, so 7 years before the war, I wrote, Sudan's student protests show how much city planning and design matter. 4 years before the war, and I really hope that all of you remember the incredible Sudanese revolution that saw the overthrowing of the government of Omar al-Bashir, a youth movement that I think inspired the world, not just the Sudanese. Very much led by youngsters, many of them young women, And I hope that you remember the icon of the revolution, which is Ala Salah on the top left. This young boy says, if you do not let us dream, we will not let you sleep. At that time, I wrote Sudan, the symbolic significance of the space protesters made their own. 9 months before the war, we went on our yearly family holiday. Every one of these homes has been looted, many times destroyed, and everyone that occupied these homes has been displaced. So that was our yearly holiday a few months before the war. 4 months before the war, I returned to Khartoum for a wedding. Navigated the city very comfortably and safely, but there was evidence of the militia in the city. But we still hadn't comprehended the extent of their infiltration of Khartoum. So I went to the wedding. Sorry. No, I don't know what to do. Okay. Sorry. Okay, yeah, that's better actually. Thank you. One of the things we did while I was there was celebrate my niece's birthday. So I took her to a shop nearby in the neighborhood and we bought a cake. And after the war broke out, one of the first images I saw was of that cake shop with dead bodies in front of it. 6 hours before the war. So this was the last performance by this particular group. 6 hours exactly before the war broke out. We had no idea what would happen after. We met in the evening under the stars. It was a unique evening with a different kind of energy. We met in love with melodies and dreams. And it was every melody we sang of peace.
المحبة هي الحرية الوحيدة في هذا العالم، لأنها ترفع النفس إلى مقام سام لا تبلغه شرائع البشر وتقاليدهم، ولا تسوده نواميس الطبيعة وأحكامها. سلام على الذين لا تبدلهم حياة ولا تفرقهم طرق ولا تغيرهم ظروف.
And we will return. And then the war started. Many of us were completely taken aback. We knew there were problems. We did not know the scale of it. But why did this war break out? And here I want to make a little bit of a detour because I always like to think of the interconnected nature of these global struggles. So I'm going to colleagues from the Congo who wrote, and now I'm shifting to the Congo, so please be alert to that. But there's an incredible similarity with the Sudan. So the town of Sake, once home to 70,000 people, now lies empty. Its population scattered across makeshift camps, while their villages are implanted with people from Rwanda and Uganda. This isn't just conflict, it is organized theft at an industrial scale. This description could be a description of the Sudan, a situation I have described as an attempt at a massive land grab, an occupation, a systematic demographic shift, and an eradication of a people, their culture, and their heritage. So the situation is fluid in the Sudan, as you know. But what these authors say is that all of this is due to the maintenance of global supply chains and corridors, whatever the commodity is. In an extractive and exploitative system, the big corporations supported by big governments are making it possible to keep their supply flows intact. And here I just invite you to think of Sudanese gum arabic and think of the companies that need it, like Nestle, Coca-Cola, and L'Oreal. I think everyone knows the story about the Sudanese gold and where it goes. And a lot of this is its Western interests, and they are seeking to secure their supply chains. So who are these people who invaded our homes and invaded our cities, and who currently are wreaking havoc in Darfur and many other regions in Sudan, and specifically Al-Fashir? I think, and I hope many of us know what has happened in Al-Fashir. You can see they're very young boys, and if I had more time, I would speak about that and the injustices that there are. There's always multiple reasons for any conflict, and but there's just isn't sufficient time. So I hope you do understand what I mean, that they are incredibly young boys that are part of the militia. So when Al-Fashir was under siege, as we were told now, the Al-Fashir resistant committees issued a statement to the to the Sudanese armed forces and their joint forces to mobilize units to break the siege. They said Al-Fashir cannot tolerate any more waiting. There is only one solution: break the siege by force, and no voice rises above the voice of battle. So that is a message. It's not from me, it's from the people on the ground. And I just want to emphasize, I represent no one. The only voice I try to, as authentically as possible, to represent is the voice of the people in the battle zones in Sudan. That's the only thing I attempt. I do not belong to any political party. I can change my positions tomorrow because I'm not bound by any one or other group. So this is a message from the people of Al-Fashir. So we know what happened, mass extermination of the people in Al-Fashir. Many people still trapped in the city. We have no idea what their fate is. So, as I said, the only thing we should be speaking about these days is Al-Fashir, but I hope I've given you some indication of the Sudan, because I also think if you really want to partner with us, you need to understand who the Sudanese people are and where they come from. So I'm just going to read a text briefly as a conclusion. So the modus operandi of the Rapid Support Forces, the Janjaweed militia, is terror, rape, destruction, and theft. And I'm asking the question here, why would any world leader of any country recognize the leader Hemeti as a main player in Sudanese politics now? And I'm asking here quite directly, and please forgive me, my text is very direct. South Africa, DIRCO, We are disappointed in a statement that failed to name the RSF as the perpetrators for the genocide in Al-Fashir, given your history in defending human rights across the world. President Ramaphosa, we are disappointed that you elected to meet with the militia leader, Hemedti, early in the war. What message are you sending by that? I also have a message to the United Arab Emirates as the main weapons supplier to the Janjaweed and the main beneficiary of the war. I really think that the Emirates need to stop telling Sudanese about democracies, human rights, and even, and I am really outraged at this, women's rights. How can they even mention women's rights? A country being led by princesses or amirs who inherit titles from their family members and whose women are nowhere to be seen in meaningful public arenas. How can they tell us about women's rights in the Sudan, a country that has a long heritage and history of a women's movement? And how can the United Arab Emirates speak of a civilian-led democracy in the Sudan? I have a very simple message for them. You do not own Sudan. More frankly, Sudan is none of your business. So sadly, I think some Sudanese group, and I really want to emphasize they are a minority and they are not in the war areas. They're using the death, torture, rape, and starvation of our own people to not only solve all of Sudan's problems, but also the problems of the whole world. And I actually ask them, where are these civilian-led democracies you aspire to? Not that I don't aspire to it, but where are they? None of the nations that surround us, very few of the nations of the so-called developed world, where you cannot even raise a Palestinian flag without being threatened. Not even in the United States of America, where people now speak about Trump in nervous whispers. We all aspire to civilian-led democracies throughout the world. We aspire to peace, to wise leadership. But when the lives are not ours to give, we cannot sacrifice our own people on the ground. And I really think that distorted messaging needs to stop. So I take my cue from the people on the ground in the war zones. And I present here an ethical, unambiguous message to the global community on how to support the Sudan. Reject any message on the Sudan that downplays the role of the RSF militia or undermines the importance of the current government, whatever its flaws. Reject any voice that downplays the role of the United Arab Emirates in the war. Understand and communicate that this is not a war between two generals. This is a war against the Sudanese people. It's a war against the Sudanese people and the Sudanese state. It's an attempt to eradicate Sudan as we know it. It is a genocide, as we have seen in Al-Fashir. Why? Like other African conflicts and like what I've shared, land, gold, and global interests are at the heart of this. And I believe that there are political positions that are strategic and political positions that are based on a long-term strategy, and that being unable to distinguish the two is highly problematic. The war, this conflict is a war against innocent civilians. I don't believe it's a civil war. Where do the displaced people go? They find refuge in the army-controlled zones, which is the army, which is currently really the de facto government of the Sudan, operating from Port Sudan, but moving gradually to Khartoum. I also ask that some Sudanese groups fail to outright name the RSF militia as a terrorist group, and they failed to name the United Arab Emirates as being very complicit in this war. I ask here, is the army complicit? And I say definitely, definitely. The army is complicit. But A dismantling of the army now means a dismantling of the Sudanese state. The priority now is to maintain the integrity of the state and to protect the people on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Amira, for providing the context and also for providing the background to Sudan. But also, I think more importantly is what you read out at the end. And these are very powerful, these are very, very profound messages, whether these messages are going to the South African government, whether it's going to our own president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and also to all those who are complicit, actively involved. And they obviously have been shown out. And at the end of the day, what we need to do is, as humanitarians, as activists, as civil society, as media activists as well, because this is a message that needs to go out to the media as well in terms of buying in on the narrative as far as Sudan is concerned. And it is clear that this is not a conflict between two factions. It is clear the external forces that are playing out, the complicity of the United Arab Emirates and many other players that are actually involved. And the ultimate aim, as Professor Amira also pointed out as well, is the resources, the breakup of Sudan, all of that actually playing out. And this is the reason why we call on activists, we call on solidarity movements. We've got the BDS movement in South Africa when it comes to Palestine, boycotting Zionists as well. And we are seeing very, very strong calls as far as the United Arab Emirates is concerned as well. Recently on social media, we're witnessing a lot of that in terms of Dubai, the glitter, the glitz and the glamour of Dubai, the gold of, but where is that gold coming? That gold is actually dripping in the blood of the poor people of Sudan. And that is a message that we need to get out. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor now to welcome Brother Ramadan Ahmed. Brother Ramadan Ahmed, as a journalist, as a political analyst as well. And I think I'm sure we can draw a lot, as a media as well from your experience as well. So it's my absolute pleasure to call you on stage. But also just to remember that we will be having a Q&A session at the end of the program as well. So please keep that in mind, that we will give you an opportunity to raise questions. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having left your loved ones at home and came to attend this evening here in order to listen and hear and react to what happens in Sudan. Before I start my part, I would like to make a disclaimer that I do not belong to any political entity, and I do not represent any faction. I am a Sudanese citizen, and I represent the pulse of the people. So I don't represent any institution. I am an editor of SudanHorizon.com. It is an online newsletter that focuses on Sudanese affairs. So when I speak my mind, and I do not necessarily represent any entity, even if my views coincide or agree, are in line with any entity. I still represent myself. So thank you very much, Salam Media, for having availed this opportunity for us to come here and present this hot issue on the African continent. And I think it is the hottest issue at the moment. No matter how you imagine the horrors, the atrocities that have taken place and are still taking place while I'm talking to you now, no matter how you imagine, you can in no way come closer to the reality on the ground. Why I'm saying this? Because perpetrators of what is going on in Sudan are well protected. And wherever you see problem, whether in the African continent or elsewhere in the world, there must be the fingerprint of imperialism. There is no question about that. Imperialism does not come by itself, but it uses either functional states or functional groups. And these functional entities, they raise very flowery slogans in order to mesmerize people and deceive those who are shallow-minded, and they end up believing in the flowery slogans that are raised. And this is exactly what happens in Sudan. So based on these flowery slogans that you may raise, you may hear that there is a democracy, or is it a democracy that is to be protected, and there is a military coup that has taken over in Sudan. And when you talk to African people like that, definitely they recall any military coups that took place in the continent, and the behavior of military coups or behavior or rebel groups. In fact, what happens in Sudan, if you call the RSF rebel groups, you are praising them. They are in no way rebel groups, because rebels, they rebellions broke out in Africa, including Sudan itself, from independence. In Sudan, we have seen rebellions from independence. Until when? Still there is rebellion. But rebellion in Sudan always have their objectives and goals. Sometimes myself as a citizen feel that these rebels, they have goals, and the government need to sit with them and talk to them. And I remember very well when Khalil Ibrahim invaded Khartoum, Omdurman, that's the part of the capital, it's like Pretoria and Johannesburg. They came with their military tanks, and they made their way into the capital, and they wanted to go to the radio station in order to capture the radio station and take over. This is rebel movement. So when they entered, they could buy their water and whatever they wanted from the shops, and they would ask where this. They were asking about their way, but they never spoke to a citizen, and nobody got harmed until they clashed with government forces, and then they got defeated and they withdrew. No any single citizen got harmed. We got rebels that broke out in South Sudan before secession of the South. John Garang, the rebels in Nuba Mountains, and the latest ones were the rebels in Darfur, some of whom government signed agreements with, and now they are part of Sudanese government. These are the rebels led by Arko Minnawi, who is now the governor of Darfur in the Sudanese government, and also the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Jibril Ibrahim. So all these rebellions that broke out in Sudan, the Sudanese people in the rural areas where these people operated knew them very well. They only targeted government garrisons in the areas where they operated. Wherever there are clashes, people will move on with their daily lives. Nobody cares, except what happens now happened now in this so-called rebellion. It's not rebellion. To call a spade, ladies and gentlemen, what happens today in Sudan, it is a foreign invasion. I have no doubt to say that. It is a foreign invasion. RSF is composed mainly of Arab Bedouins. These are nomads. Some of them are Sudanese tribes in West Darfur, but a good number of them are brought in from Chad, from Niger, from Mali, and far West Africa, from the Arab nomads in these places. And it looks like the objectives or the aspirations of these groups converge with the aspirations of the regional powers that are sponsoring them. And all of them are competing for the resources of the country. So the interests converged. And now what happened, as Professor Amira showed you, there has been invasion of homes, invasion of villages. So the atrocities that are mentioned, in fact, Professor Amira was too soft and she couldn't be able to show you the atrocities happen. And I think anybody of good heart would not be able to view the atrocities that took place or taking place while I'm talking to you now. What happened in Al-Fashir over the last few days is something that all of you have come to know because the media has shown it. But you don't know what happened before in Khartoum when these people occupied Khartoum. Almost Khartoum was controlled by them. The middle of Sudan, central Sudan, was under their control. They controlled almost 80 to 90% of Sudan. This was not just control of areas. Shops were looted, homes were looted, girls were raped, and women, elderly, were killed. People were evacuated and expelled out of their homes. New settlers came in and settled there. Atrocities in entire villages were wiped off. Nobody heard. And massacres were more than 107 massacres committed in Sudan in the hands of the RSF. So when you say RSF is a rebel movement, no, it is not. You are praising them when you say they are rebels. You are praising them. These are terrorist groups. And I think the word terrorist applies to them 100 times. And I think if these groups cannot be designated as a terrorist group or a terrorist organization, we need to redefine the word terrorism. And the reason why they are still approached with soft gloves is because imperialist fingerprints are there. And whoever these days, in this age where we are, if imperialism is behind you, you can do everything that you want, and you can get away with it. Nobody cares, and nobody will question you. And you have seen all this in Gaza. What happened in Gaza was something that never happened in history. We read history, but never happened in history. And all the world, people, free people, all the nations protested, but still nothing was done until the imperialist regime realized that it is morally drained. That's why they had to intervene and do something about it and stop it. It didn't stop at all. It never stopped. Until this moment, Palestinians are still being bombarded. So if you are supported by imperialism, then you can do away with any kind of crimes that you would perpetrate. So, ladies and gentlemen, what happens in Sudan has nothing to do with civil war. Sometimes the media says civil war. It has nothing to do with civil war. There's no civil war. It is invasion. So please call it as such. And standing with the Sudanese army, with Sudanese resistance, the popular resistance, is something crucial. Crucial in the sense that these terrorist groups must be eliminated from Sudan. Why I'm saying this? I'm saying it because RSF is a phenomenon. It is a phenomenon. And that phenomenon, if not eliminated, if all Africans cannot stand in order to get rid of it, I'm afraid tomorrow we will see many RSFs in the African continent. Many RSFs. Just imagine you South Africans here, you got this Buramak group. Buramak is now dead, but assume the imperialists decided that South African government is no more listening enough, and they need to do something in order to inflict some pain into the state. So they came to revive this Buramak. They fund them, they equip them, they send them whatever they want, and then they start invading the cities, taking over villages, towns, and then they came and took over Johannesburg, looted banks, and did everything. Everything they did. Now, some outside forces tell you, oh, South Africans, why can't you come and talk with this Buramak? We need peace. There should be peace. And then you go and you need to go and talk to them and bring them to be part of the system. Are you crazy? Absolutely, you're crazy if you can accept that. These are terrorist groups. They can in no way be part of the regime, let alone be in any kind of leadership position. These are thieves. These are thugs. So what happens in Sudan is not a civil war, it's an invasion. I'm in no way saying that the Sudanese army is 100% pure. No, I'm not saying that. They might have made some mistakes, they might have committed some atrocities. They might have killed some innocents, bombs. But there is difference between bombing these terrorists who are shielding themselves among the citizens, and this is different from targeting innocent people, holding women and children and slaughtering them, or just firing at them. This is completely different. So while I'm talking to you now, this narrative of two parties should be eliminated. There are no two parties at all. There is force of aggression and there is force of resistance. The force of resistance is supported by the Sudanese people. And with them, there are fighters, Sudanese youngsters from different backgrounds, political backgrounds. Yes, some of them might belong to the Islamists. Yes, I agree that. And some of them belong even to the communist groups, the Ba'ath Party, and some nationalists. People come from different backgrounds when the army said, these people are powerful. And why I'm saying powerful, you know, when Khartoum was invaded in 2023, that is for 15 April, thousands of armored vehicles bombarded Khartoum. I tell you frankly, if this happened in New York, I don't hesitate at all to say that they would have taken New York. Very strong army, thousands of them. But the Sudanese army stood its ground and repelled them. They attacked the house of the army commander or the army leader, that is Al-Burhan, who is now the army commander in Sudan. And they killed about 35 of his political bodyguards. They killed them, and he managed to escape. These people are well equipped. The kind of weapons that they are using, even the army doesn't have. This is a kind of a special rebellion, if you call it rebellion. They are well equipped. So when the army saw that it has no power to confront these people, they had to announce that, please, whoever is able to hold arms, let them come. And people received. There's no political party behind them. They just took arms and stood by the army, and they are there. But sometimes in the media, we hear that there are extremist groups fighting along the army, extremists, and the word extremist now is no more. It is useless commodity at the moment, because and all the world, thanks to social media, when the imperialists say that extremists or terrorists or whatsoever, we know who they mean. They mean whoever says no to imperialist invasion or imperialist influence in any country. Whoever says no, he becomes extremist, and it only happens that the Islamists or Islamic groups are in the front, like how you have in Palestine. Palestine, Hamas is a terrorist group according to the United States, because it is a resistance group, and so on. So these people took arms and stood by the army, and they are fighting. They don't belong to one group, they don't to one entity, but they are belonging to the Sudanese people. So some of you might ask why the RSF is killing so brutally, and why is it that they kill? Why they kill so brutally? Why they kill innocents? And I would like to remind you that any forces of invasion, they have that culture, and we have seen it in the 5 settler countries. Do you know these 5 settler countries? You got United States, Canada, Israel, Australia, and South Africa. These are called the 5 settler countries in the world. So that mentality of the settler is the same. Whether it is in Sudan, whether it is in Australia, whether it is in Canada or whatsoever. The settler mentality is based on the fact that the mere existence of indigenous people is a threat to them. It reminds them that they don't belong here. That's why indigenous people should be wiped off. They should be wiped off, and this is exactly what they're doing. So if you have an understanding of the general picture, then you can have interpretation of what happens on the ground. So no more wonder. You don't wonder anymore. So in a nutshell, and I don't want to prolong my speech so that I can give you some room for questions, and I'm free to answer whatever questions, and I welcome your comments. What I want to say is that there is no equality between the Sudanese army, which is supported by the Sudanese people on the one hand, and the RSF group that is committing atrocities. Even the political parties that once upon a time stood as impartial, took an impartial position, have condemned the atrocities of RSF in Al-Fashir, and I think our brother Khalid Dahab is here. He is a representative of Sumud group. Is a political group that took a stand, non-aligned stand. But when it happens Al-Fashir, they even condemned what happened there, which means now condemnation of what RSF is doing is a political, all the political components have done it. Only one group that is part of the RSF, which is still there. And this they are part of RSF, and they cannot distance themselves from the RSF. That's called Atrocities. The Atrocities group is the one that have established so-called government, and they are at the moment they are some of them in Geneva, and they are very busy in the media. So these are the groups that are supporting RSF. Now, coming to the part of the United Arab Emirates. Myself, like all the Sudanese, are wondering, what is it that the Sudanese people did to the United Arab Emirates to support such an aggression against the Sudanese people? Nobody can give you an answer. Given that the Sudanese people, Sudanese experts in 1970s, late 60s and 1970s, when the United Arab Emirates was established, Sudanese experts were sent by the Sudanese government and paid by the Sudanese government to go and establish the newly rising state. There were main planners in the municipalities, architects, judges, teachers, even the army. The UAE army was built by the Sudanese experts. And Sudan and the Emiratis, they got good relationships. And a Sudanese in the United Arab Emirates is looked at with by the Emiratis with respect. They respect the Sudanese people a lot. So there is some kind of fraternal relationships. And all of a sudden, UAE is supporting this group that is committing all these atrocities. So everybody is asking, what is going on? What is the reason? Until this moment, nobody can give you an answer, except maybe experts who look beyond and read between the lines can tell you. So it's very sad. And I hope that the African Union, South Africa, and all the African states can stand, take one position against foreign intervention in Sudan. And when I say foreign intervention, the intervention that supports the terror that is going on at the moment. Sometimes when they equate between the army and the RSF, they will tell you both the parties are receiving aids from foreign. This is not correct. The Sudanese army at the moment is the de facto government because of there's no government. The army is the only institution that is at the moment remained strong. All the state institutions have been destroyed, as you have seen from this presentation that Prof has presented to you. Everything collapsed. So now the army is the de facto government, and it is the one who is now protecting the citizens. If the army was not there, there wouldn't be anything called Sudan. And you have seen how careless, how chaotic RSF is. They are even fighting among themselves. The leader himself, Hemeti, who is the commander of the RSF, doesn't have control over his troops. And this is something that he said by himself, that there are things that happen I don't have control over. Even if today the government of Sudan, or the de facto government of Sudan, decides to sign an agreement with Hemeti, Hemeti will come and sign an agreement, but nobody will be able to impose that agreement on his forces on the ground. Can you imagine the dilemma in which you are in now? It is very complicated, and I think the Sudanese people are very determined. So what we request of South Africa needs to get the narrative right. The narrative that is dominant here is the wrong narrative. There are no two sides to the conflict, and there is no conflict. No civil war, no conflict, but there is invasion. That invasion happened in Sudan, and tomorrow it can happen in Uganda, it can happen in South Africa, it can happen in Mozambique, and it can happen everywhere, as long as the imperialists are hungry for the resources of the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramadan Ahmed. And once again, a major takeaway from here, and this has been repeated over and over again, is the question of language, using the right type of language, the right terminology in describing what is taking place in Sudan, and also at the same time in terms of narratives. And these are narratives that need to be debunked over and over again. And this is the responsibility of us as activists, as media people as well, to make absolutely sure that the correct narrative actually goes out and the correct messaging goes out as well. What we're going to do now is we are going to have a Q&A. So I'd like to request Professor Amira and Brother Ahmed to take your seats in front. But before that, just 5 minutes to our campaign coordinator at Salam Media, Apa Mariam Mia, just to provide us with 5 minutes. Apa Mariam Mia, is she around? Oh, there we go. Okay.
One, two.
Abba Mariam obviously has been at the forefront of Salam Media's many a campaign. Some of us actually call her the mother of Salam Media, and very active. Sometimes, as Brother Ramadan Ahmed say, call a spade, she would call that as well at Salam Media.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we'd like to thank everybody for coming. Shukran for your address, Sister Amira and Brother Ramadan. It was thought-provoking, educational, and also, like you say, very, very confusing in terms of who controls the puppet strings here. But like every campaign, sadly, the casualties are the ordinary people on the ground who have nothing to do with this. They just want a good life for their children, for themselves, and they want to live in peace and harmony, and they get embroiled in the big global politics of the world. So we're here to support Sister Amira because they've started a campaign where they can support families who have lost everything, really everything, eking out this. There's starvation, there's famine, there's a lack of resources. So what I've done is with every campaign, in terms of how do we go and gather momentum. So Brother Ponti and I have then decided we've made a little memento here. It's, we took it from Sister Amira. This is to retain the culture. This is embedded in terms of, this is the weaving and the cultural clothing and design of the people in Sudan, juxtaposed with, the design that Sister Amira is wearing of Gaza, because these two struggles are both sides of the same coin. So just as a token, and then we've played around the design. So we've got this one here and this one here. So please support us for donation. So I say 100 in donation, you'll get, I'm not selling this. So don't say I'm priced out of the market. I'm just saying for donation, you'll get 100 and please take more and ask your friends, put it there on the fridge and talk about it. Talk about it to your families, talk about it to your children, talk about it to the youth, because you all coming here, you need to leave a legacy behind. And your legacy is to teach our youth, please speak up, stand up. Don't choose silence as the path. Choose your mouth. I look at my dad sitting in here, and I remember not long ago, he told me in the days of Bloemhof and them, they were afraid because if they went past a certain area, they were attacked. Like you say, Boeramag, the Afrikaner children used to come and beat them up just because they've crossed there. And I think we've all fought apartheid, so we have this privilege. I used to sit and I used to think, I wish I could be in Leicester Square in Hyde Park because I could speak my mind without being arrested down the road in John Foster. And today we have that privilege, and go to America and speak what we're speaking, or say Gaza, say this, what's going to happen to you? Ask the journalists, go to the UAE, go to Saudi, go anywhere, wear your Palestinian gear in Saudi for Salah, see what happens to you. So please respect this privilege we had, what we fought so hard for, this ability to amplify voices, this ability to speak out. And it's a privilege, but please honor that privilege and don't ever take it for granted, because we don't want to go back to being a USA or even a UAE, please. So help me in my campaign and let's help Sudan. Thank you. Salailo, are you going to help us with the Q&A?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, questions. Can we first get Sheikh Amira and
Yes, Salailo. Okay, you've got the roving mic. Okay.
So we're just going to start
Yes,
on this side and then
not a problem. Okay. Yes, what we'll do is just if you could introduce yourself, please, and also who your question is directed to, please.
My name is Sonny Morgan, and I'm a Pan-Africanist activist. I want to understand what's happening in Sudan. So I've come here to get educated. I'm not an expert on the geopolitics, but I want to answer this question about why suddenly the attack and the invasion at this point in time, and why so brutal and why so quickly. And so we want to ask who's pulling the levers. So my question is it too much of a jump to assume that the Zionists have a role to play in the invasion? And I'm being cynical by saying I think maybe there's an attempt to deflect attention away from Gaza and of Palestine. The Zionists are so mental, so crazy that I wouldn't put it past them to have orchestrated this invasion, specifically because the UAE is so closely involved. And the UAE is one of the most ardent supporters of the Zionist movement through their normalization program. So am I being over cynical in assuming that perhaps the Zionists also have a role to play here?
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Would like to take that prop? You or both of
Let
you?
them ask question and then.
Okay. Can we take a? Okay, we'll take another question.
so we'll take 4 rounds of
We'll take
question
4.
and
Okay.
then answer.
Let's take 4.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Khalid Dahab, and I represent the Sudanese Civilian Alliance known as SUMUD, which is an alliance that includes more than 20 political parties. Sorry? Hello? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Do I need to repeat? Are you okay? Okay, thank you. So, so it includes about 20 political more than 20 political parties, civil society organizations, professional associations, trade unions, resistance committees, and a lot of individuals. So this is the major civilian alliance. It is led by the deposed prime minister, the civilian prime minister, Dr. Abdullah Hamdok. This is just to introduce the organization. First of all, I would like to join my colleagues here in condemning all the atrocities that have taken place, not just in Al-Fashir, but as we speak now, more atrocities are being committed in the town of Bara in northern Kordofan. This has been a trademark of the Janjaweed, of the RSF. Wherever they go, they create havoc. They kill, they maim, they rape, they destroy, they loot. This has been all over, happening all over. So let me be very clear on that. We are totally condemning the actions of this murderous group. Having said that, I would just like to clarify a few things. Number one is I would like to ask the question, who created the RSF? It is the army or the government of Umar al-Bashir. And why did they create the RSF? They created the RSF because there was a rebellion going on in Darfur. So they took these people, they armed them, they trained them, and they sent them to go and create havoc in all the villages and areas that were in Darfur. So they have been committing these atrocities long before the start of this current war. So that is it. Why then, after the revolution, why and who allowed the RSF to expand when the revolutionaries were saying that this Janjaweed must be disbanded, that there should be only one army in the country, no militias, all the armed factions, all the groups must be disbanded, and only one national army should remain. When people were saying that, they were being imprisoned, they were being tortured, they were being detained, they were being taken to court. And then all of a sudden, they turn against them. Because at a certain point in time, the RSF grew so big that it threatened the existence of the army. And that is when the war started, the current war started. Now, I have to be very clear. This is a war of resources. The Sudan is a very rich country, like my colleagues have said. And currently, gold is the main commodity that all of these factions are fighting for. So it is a war of resources. And when people talk about external intervention in the country, again, it is the resources. They are after the resources, whoever they are. I'm not saying it is the United Arab Emirates or it's any other country, but all of them. And make no mistake, there is definitely foreign intervention in this war. And all of them are in because of the resources, either supporting this side or supporting the other side. So it's a war of resources and national interest. You know, I studied political science, and the first lesson they gave us was, the title was The National Interest. Every country in the world will do what is best for their national interest. So be it the United Arab Emirates, be it the United States, be it Russia, be it whoever, they will get involved in this war based on their national interest. So that is that. Now, I would like to also talk about the legitimacy of the government that is sitting in Port Sudan. That government came through a military coup, overthrowing the government, the civilian government that was formed as a result of a consensus. So they do not have any legitimacy. Equally, the government that formed itself in Niala does not have any legitimacy. They cannot claim, either of them or both of them cannot claim to be representing the Sudanese people. The Sudanese people are the ones who are suffering as a result of this war everywhere.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Just
I think
the last
obviously
point.
time is of the essence.
Last point. I just have one last point. I would like to condemn the intervention of any external force in this war. This is a war that has made the Sudanese people suffer. To call for this war to continue is more suffering for the people. This war must end now. And there is no way to end the war unless people sit down and talk. Whether we like it or not, the RSF is a reality. They have to sit down and talk and come to, and bring this war to an end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, we have one more this side.
Khalid.
Let's keep it short.
Yeah, we're taking four at a time. So after Khalid, one more, and then we'll
Assalamu alaikum. Khalid Vada from Social Intifada. There have been reports circulating in the media about militia involvements from mercenaries that come from Colombia, South Africa. Can you shed some light on that, number one? And number two, what information do you have on direct Israeli involvement in the brutal massacres in Sudan?
Shukran for that, Khalid.
So
At the back,
this-
Aisha.
So we'll move that side. Let's
Okay.
finish this side. So one more, and then answer, and then we move to the next section.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Moran Dawood from Soweto Muslim Association. We had a very great privilege last year in Ramadan, where we had 4 of our brothers that came from Sudan. And specifically, they were coming from South Sudan. There's an African saying that says, when 2 elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And I like some of the points that were actually raised by the honorable man sitting there, that we, in all of the presentation that was done in front of us, there was not, I only had one word from Sheikh Ramadan, where he mentioned, where he spoke about South Sudan. There was not a mention about South Sudan and where they are. Because as far as we read and we know, is that Northern Sudan was actually responsible for some of the atrocities that were caused in South Sudan. And with the people, all of the time, what we see in history is people that actually, same thing that happened in South Africa, where you talk about apartheid. Sheikh Ramadan spoke about the indigenous people. Who are the indigenous people of Sudan? We always see the people that claims to be the original Arabs that will always suppress the other ones and see them as subordinates. And this is what we've seen with the South Sudanese. We've seen also in Western Sahara, this is exactly the same thing that has been happening. We've seen also in Egypt, where the white-skinned Egyptians speaks down on the Nubians. And this is what is perpetuated. So what is happening there in Sudan? The question would be, is it not somehow the same pain that was felt by the Sudanese, the South Sudanese, that was done to them by the North Sudanese, that they are now experiencing that? Shukran.
Jazakallah. Shukran for that. We'll ask both Professor Amira and Sheikh Ramadan. I'm not too sure who wants to go first. Yes, you can stay.
Thank you for these questions. I appreciate really having asked these questions. One is the role of Zionism, a connection with Zionism. You know that Sudan is one of the, especially North Sudan, is one of the areas that are designated as an extension of the Zionist, what do you call it? The grand state of Israel, the grand, yeah, the great, yeah, the great Israel, yeah, the great Israel. So whatever destabilization that happens in Sudan, we cannot exclude the hands of Zionism, including the secession of South Sudan. There are documents that indicate, these documents actually are published by Israeli institutions that show what kind of plans they have for Sudan. And you remember when General Al-Burhan opened, the door for the Zionist state, they came to Sudan, and the first place to visit is there is a factory for manufacturing arms. That is defense manufacturing institution. That's the first place they went and visited, unfortunately. So there is no way that we can exclude the Zionist hands in what's happening in Sudan. And you know, the Zionist state is a functional state, and it uses other functional states to extend its influences. And we know, of course, how much influence Israel has on, unfortunately, the United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates almost is not only an ally of Israel, but it's like another state, unfortunate proxy state, exactly. So we cannot exclude the influence of Zionism in what is going on. In fact, wherever you see conflicts in Africa, I mentioned imperialism. Imperialism and Zionism are working together. It's like the two sides of one coin. So whenever I mention imperialism, there is Zionism included. Brother Khalid, who is the representative of Sumud, I appreciate the question that he asked on his comment, but he mentions things that I deliberately avoided to mention in my speech. But once he touched on them, I have to clarify things. Who established the RSF? RSF was established officially in 2017, and it was annexed to the army. Before that, they were operating as a border guard, a borders guard. They were operating like that, but they took the official institution, the official designation in 2017 when they were annexed to the army. The army was hesitant to accept this institution, but anyway, after debates and the parliament of that time approved, and there was a law, a law for the RSF. Now, the RSF was operating in Darfur and many parts of the Sudan, although the government of General Bashir made a big mistake, of course, for having recruited a group from one ethnic group, which was wrong. But still, RSF, until that moment, it was under the control of the central government, despite sometimes it perpetrated some atrocities, but still it was well controlled. The personnel was 20,000, and the weapons were were ordinary traditional weapons. They were not well equipped by that time. But after the collapse of the government of al-Bashir, there was a political vacuum. The political forces that took over after the revolution of December did not have strength to fill the vacuum that was left by the government of al-Bashir. So there was a very lousy situation that allowed foreign forces to come in order to make sure that they find their footprints there. So they started to work with RSF on the one hand, and they started to work with the political groups on the other hand. That time it was what Freedom and Change Alliance, of which Brother Khalid was part. So that group, in normal circumstances, when you have a transitional period, there are three things that you have to be very clear about. If you don't have these three things, things will go wrong. And this is exactly what happened. Number one, how to deal with the former regime. This is very important because the former regime knows every nail that is stuck somewhere in the state. So if they want to fight you, they just turn their back against you and you start, moving around until your forces are exhausted and you again fall. So you have to know how to deal with the former regime. And in the case of Sudan, the government of al-Bashir had to fall because even the members of the NCP party, that is National Congress Party, the members themselves were fed up with the way the government was being performed because al-Bashir was surrounded by a group of opportunists. So even the leaders of SCP anticipated the fall of the government, which means that everybody was prepared for change. So meaning that you need to have a clear message that you, the members of the former regime, we don't target you as individuals. We don't target you as belonging to the former regime. You are citizens. As long as you don't have any, no suspicions around you, you are part of us and you have to share with us the change. This is what the message, clear message that you need to send so as to pacify the elements of the former regime. This is number one. Number two, you need to have a political project that can bring all people together, irrespective of where they belong. So if somebody is a farmer, he finds himself there, he's a teacher, an architect, an engineer, a student, a laborer, everybody finds himself in this political project. Here, belonging to a party is not a condition at all. So this is a political project, and this is exactly what Mandela did. Mandela presented his political project, and the whites bought into it before the blacks, right? So the whites were prepared for change. Now this is number two. Number three, you have to have transitional justice. The Sudanese people were prepared to see real justice conducted, where the former corrupt elements of the former regime had to be, people need to see them being brought to court, but that didn't happen. So the government, which was led by these groups to which Brother Khalid belongs, they never conducted all this. They let things loose like that. That's why everything was prepared for foreign intervention. And that's exactly what happened. Now, that foreign intervention, my dear colleagues and sisters and brothers, had three-step strategies to take over government of Sudan. Number one, they wanted to do it through agreement. And that agreement gave RSF forces 10 years to integrate into the armed forces. And given the speed, the speed whereby these groups were growing, 2 years or less were enough for them to swallow the army. That's number one. So the army discovered this and they refused to sign the agreement. Now, strategy one, step one failed. The second strategy is to conduct a military coup. And it was a military coup in the strict sense of the term. Everybody in Khartoum, one month before the war, would sense that there is something fishy going on. The amount of arms that RSF brought from Western Sudan, it was something amazing. Everybody saw it and people just scared. That's number one. Number two, the fact that they attacked the house of General Al-Burhan. They attacked. Why? And they announced it, that they want to kill Al-Burhan or his surrender. They wanted him to surrender. It was a military coup. Besides that, they went to the radio station. Somebody called Izzat, something Izzat. Izzat is an advisor of the RSF leader. He went to the radio station and he had the statement to broadcast it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he couldn't be able to operate the radio, and they occupied the radio and the TV stations. This is step two, it failed. Step three is the war. And in that war, they were very 100% sure that would defeat the army. The army stood its ground and the war failed to allow them to take over the state. And they controlled Khartoum and all the middle of Sudan. And I told you about 80 to 90% of Sudan was under their control. The army stood its ground and managed to push them until the peripheries of Kordofan and Darfur in the west. So the idea that the government of Al-Burhan is a coup, we know how coups operate. Mr. Hamadok, in fact, when Hamadok came as a prime minister, the amount of reception that he received, never even elected president ever received. All the Sudanese people were very happy and unanimously accepted this Hamadok as a prime minister. But unfortunately, the political forces that surrounded him failed him. They failed him completely, terribly, because they never had any project for ruling the state, apart from running and chasing the elements of the former state, and they played politics with them. They played politics. You know what they did? They never confronted them. Okay, you took our leaders, we put them to prison, let them rot. Some of them even died in the prison. There was no resistance of any kind. And these people were running, looking to get some kind of resistance, so they played politics with them. Now, So anyway, Al-Burhan is the one that gave he took oath here. This guy, what's his name? No, the Prime Minister, Hamadok. Hamadok took oath before Al-Burhan, and it is Al-Burhan who removed him. So it's that military coup. It was an agreement between the political forces between the political forces and the army, and things went wrong, and the army decided to again. So we don't want to go into details of this, so that it is a bit controversial. But what I want to conclude here is that, please, what is going on in Sudan is a war of invasion, and there is no way we can say this is a coup and we have to support this or that. The other question is, he raised how to end the war. Yes, everybody wants the war to end. We want the war to end. Nobody actually wants war, absolutely. But how? Al-Fashir was besieged for 2 years. People ate animal feed. Some of them died. A lot of things happened. There were calls for cessation of hostilities, and opening corridors for civilians, for aids to go to, but nothing happened. After Al-Fashir has fallen in the hands of the RSF, then came call, let's stop and make peace. You can make peace with somebody who is a security threat. Security threat means threatening the lives of citizens. If it is a military threat, yes, you can talk to somebody who represents a military threat, but not to someone who represents security threat. You have to understand this. The last question is about South Sudan and the indigenous people. The concept of indigenous people, it might sometimes cause us a problem. In Darfur, you got local tribes who are indigenous in Darfur. And you got tribes that came, the Arab Bedouins or the nomads who came from the Sahel. Some of them settled in Niger, Chad, and Sudan. It is the same tribes. You got clans scattered in these countries. But in this war, most of them came. And they wanted to take the lands of the indigenous people and kill them and take over. This is exactly what's happening now in Al-Fashir at the moment. So maybe you mixed it with South Sudan. South Sudan, there was a narrative that was surrounding even in South Africa here. When John Garang used to come here in South Africa, he used to say the Arabs did this, or the Arabs took our land, or Arabs are doing this. Now, he was talking this language because in South Africa, when you talk about whites and blacks, it makes a lot of sense. So in the mind of someone who comes from that background, it makes a lot of sense, the Arabs. So when Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma went to Sudan for the first time, she was looking to see the Arabs. Where are these Arabs? They said to her, no Arabs. These are the people who are called Arabs. And from that time, believe me, John Garang never given a red carpet. He just received him because he loved them. The concept of Arabs in Sudan is not something that comes to your mind. When I talk in Sudan, when people say Arabs, meaning that is people who come from the Bedouins, and people who live in the urban areas are just normal Sudanese, the distinction. So South Sudan and West Sudan, they are indigenous people who are people of land, and then the Arabs came from migrations, long migrations, but there have been intermarriages, and you can hardly tell who is the Arab and who is non-Arab. Yes, including this lady now. This lady is in Arab or African? Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ramadan and I spoke initially, and I can tell you that when we spoke initially, we were 100% aligned. The more you delve into your politics, Ramadan, the more we are not aligned. So, my message to Sumut, represented here by Khalid Dahab. However many entities or political parties you say you represent, you have no representation on the ground in the war zones. You have no, I sent you a WhatsApp this morning asking you about who's on the ground. You did not respond. Every distorted message you speak or write is a cause for a lost life, a raped child, a beaten woman, a starving society. And these lives, Sumud and Khalid Dahab, are not your own lives to give. You cannot condemn the United Arab Emirates because your leader Hamdok resides in the United Arab Emirates. As far as I'm concerned, Hamdok is bought. He is bought by the United Arab Emirates. Sumud, I've asked multiple times, when you take the stage at global events, when you speak on numerous platforms, when you have access to high-level boardrooms, who do you represent? Is it a minority elite, or is it a silent, silenced, and disenfranchised majority? So thank you, Mariam and Salah Media, for supporting our dissemination and fundraising initiative. We cannot confuse our messaging now. We cannot confuse our messaging now at a time when people are calling on us to save them from the terror of the Janjaweed. I am deliberately focused on the needs of the people and not some abstract political aspirations, either by my colleague here or by my colleague there. Thank you so much.
Salilo?
Yeah, we're going to.
Aisha? Can I just make one request, please? Obviously, we are against time. So if we can keep our questions just brief and also our responses.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair. Good evening to those of you who are here. Firstly, I'd like to just apologize for being late. I had car trouble. So my sister Amira, I missed your presentation, but I agree with everything you've just said. Secondly, I'd just like to make one thing clear, please. That what has been said here, as somebody who has worked extensively in Sudan, albeit not very recently, both Mr. Ramadan Ahmed and Mr. Khalid Dahab have not told the total truth here today. As a representative of the Sudanese armed forces, and I agree with you that right now they are perhaps Sudan's best bet for some kind of salvation. But let's be honest, the RSF were not merely border guards, Mr. Ahmed. They come from the Janjaweed that were armed by the Umar al-Bashir government. And they at least conducted what was at least an ethnic cleansing in Darfur with not just the complicity of the government, but arming and financing from them. I'm probably the only person, or maybe one of 2 or 3 persons here who's actually met Hemedti, albeit almost 20 years ago. And I can tell you right now, that's an evil, evil man. But to whitewash the Sudanese armed forces as not being responsible, at least historically, for arming the Janjaweed and what is now the RSF and what was interim the border guards is a white lie, perhaps not even a white lie because it is costing lives. So let's own up, please, to what really is the history of the RSF. Okay. And as someone, Mr. Dahab, who not only studied and lectured political science, but grew up in apartheid South Africa, I recognize apartheid when I see it. And what Hemeti did in the early 2000s and is doing today is a campaign of ethnic cleansing based on race divisions. Even though all Sudanese, as my brother Mr. Ahmed has said, look physiognomically African, there is an Arabization of sorts, mainly based in language and other things and livelihoods, particularly in Darfur. And there is an ethnic campaign of wanting to wipe out, certainly on Hemeti's part, of wanting to wipe out the indigenous people. Mr. Dahab, I disagree with you. When Mr. Hamdok, who was a former friend of mine, I worked with him here in South Africa, when he came to power in the interim government, everybody was delighted, as Mr. Ahmed has said. But both Freedom and Change and Smooth have been very disappointing, and as Amira has pointed out, they're in collusion with the UAE. Okay, so let's be honest here. Let's not whitewash things, please. And then lastly, to come to what Sunny and Khalid Wouda asked about the Zionist influence. Ask yourself, if the UAE is involved in Sudan, and it is, and you know about the gold, and I'm sure you were told about that, and there are other resources at stake here as well. Ask yourself, who is the UAE acting as a proxy for? That proxy is being controlled from two centers, I can tell you, Washington and Tel Aviv. If you want to know why, Sunny, ask yourself what is it that Washington and other Western capitals most fear is control of the resources in Sudan. What is it that Israel most fears? An Iranian proxy in its region, in its greater Israel project. And I will tell you now that Iranian, Russian, and Chinese armaments have found their way into Sudan. It has very, very porous borders. And the fact of those armaments and also intelligence equipment in Sudan is why Washington is so nervous about what is happening in Sudan. And the fact that some of those armaments and intelligent equipment is Iranian is partly, at least, why Israel is so worried about what is happening in Sudan. And I will leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aisha. So Lilo, just before, we are at 8:45 as well. So let's just bear in mind that by 9 o'clock, obviously we will be terminating the session.
Hi, good evening. My name is Matata Tsedu. I'm a farmer. I just wanted to check what has happened to the Justice and Equality Movement and the Sudanese Liberation Army in the context of what is happening in Darfur. What is their role at the moment?
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Good evening to everybody. I'm Abdul Basit Jafal from Chad. I wish if I can ask my question in French, but unfortunately, I think there's no people who can understand my French. My question is, as a Chadian, we are bordering with Sudan and especially with Darfur. And from what we heard from the beginning of the war, that the problem of Sudan is a political problem. It's a problem of election. By the end of the transition, Al-Burhan doesn't want to organize election. That is the root of the problem. And when Mr. Ramadan mentioned some countries that support RFS or support Hemeti, I can say that neither Chad or Mali or Niger are supporting Hemeti as government. But there are young people who are looking for a job. There are others who immigrate into Europe by killing themselves in the water, and the others who choose to go to join the war in Darfur for gaining something. And this is the problem that I know.
Okay, just one more question, and I'm just looking at, yeah, just a final question we'll take, and then we'll ask our guests to respond. No more, okay. All right, who would like to take it?
Thank you so much. I just want to make a final statement and then you can address the questions. Even though I might disagree with you, but it doesn't matter. Where do displaced people go, Aisha? Where do displaced people displaced by the RSF, where do they go? They find refuge in the areas currently under the control of the army. We need to take our cue from the people on the ground, not those privileged few in a diaspora. Our voice needs to represent, and I know I'm repeating, but I think it's an important message because sometimes we go here and there and forget why we are here. So I'm taking my cue from the people on the ground. I believe my voice needs to represent those that are tortured, displaced, murdered, and starved to death. And those also, my voice also represents those who celebrate in the streets when the army takes over. I want to remind you that the army-controlled zones are areas where schools are operating, are areas where people are able to go to hospitals, they're able to go to their fields to plant their crops, and they are able to go to their businesses. Those are the army-controlled zones. I know I can sit here and speak a lot about my problems with the army and the history of the army, which some of you want to delve into, but I don't think this is the time for it. The people celebrate on the streets when the army takes over. I represent those voices, whether I like the army or not, because I'm outside. I'm not subjected to the brutality of the Janjaweed, so I'm not going to speak in any other voice. Is the army complicit? Of course it is. So that's a conversation for another time. We need to take a strategic position now. The dismantling of the army now means a dismantling of the Sudanese state. I don't like some of Cyril Ramaphosa's policies or ideas or what else, a lot of the corruption in the ANC, but I've never said do not work with the South African government, because in the end, we need to work with institutions, and it's not with individuals. So dismantling the army means dismantling the state. Our priority now is to maintain the integrity of the state. And the only way to do that is to support the voice of the people on the ground. And I just want to make a final comparison between the army-controlled zones, where the schools are open, hospitals function, and people are able to go to work. We have seen an RSF-controlled city in Al-Fashir, and it's happened elsewhere in Sudan. If the RSF today, because I'm taking a strategic position, if the RSF were to open the schools and the hospitals and to let people be safe in their homes, I wouldn't mind. So, because for me, they're both military, probably military criminal, or what is it, like people from the military and they're criminals. They don't represent the civilians of the Sudan. But if the RSF allowed people to live in safety, I mean, what's one military leader to another? It doesn't matter. But we've seen the brutality of the RSF, and we've seen that people are relatively safe in the army-controlled zones. So again, I want to bring this back to us supporting the people on the ground and supporting this campaign that Salam Media has kindly started for us.
Thank you very much once again for your questions, for having come here to participate in this gathering. The question of the responsibility of the armed forces, yes, the armed forces is responsible for establishment of the RSF, but that was history. If you gave birth to a child and you brought up that child and until you educated that child and child became somebody else. Now, if that child went and made some kind of crime, will you be blamed for that? Definitely, it will be very awkward. So we agree that it was a mistake, and I mentioned this, it was a mistake to establish a paramilitary force based on ethnicity and also based on individuals that are not organized, they are not disciplined, they lack discipline. So it's very unfortunate. It was the government that established this group was short-sighted. And that was done out of fear of the army. They were afraid of the army. That's why they established this. And that is short-sightedness. So now that is in the past, and we cannot lament the past while we are facing this kind of barbarism that is we are facing. That is these are two complete different things. And I assume, or I hope, there comes a time when there is a justice system that is established so that all these things can be brought to book. I hope that. The Justice and Equality Movement, the question, it is an organization that got some of its members seceded and joined this RSF group. But the main group is led by Dr. Jibril, who is the Ministry of Finance at the moment. So it's operating, and its members now, it's taking part of the part in the fight against this militia. If that answers your question. So anyway, what I would like to, the brother here mentioned the question, the problem of Sudan is a political problem. And I say, yes, it is a political problem. And as I mentioned, there was a political vacuum, and political forces could not be able to fill that vacuum, which led foreign forces to interfere and meddle with the affairs of the country, unfortunately, and we are paying the price. So the most important thing for us to summarize from what we have said now, if the African Union and South Africa have to intervene, they have to intervene for two purposes. One is to stop the United Arab Emirates from supporting the militia. That's number one. Number two is to help the political forces to start the establishment of rule of law. This is one of the aspirations of the Sudanese people. Now, we do not go for the aspirations of the imperialists. We go for the aspirations of the Sudanese people. And Sudanese people do not want anything less than a democratic state, rule of law, and good governance. This is what we aspire for. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much to you, Professor Amira, and also to you, Brother Ramadan Ahmed, as well, for your presence, and also to the audience this evening. I do believe that, obviously we've covered a lot of ground, we've unpacked a lot, and I think that was the intention and the objective behind hosting this program, and obviously under the leadership of our COO, Ponti Molasani as well, Salailo Abdul Salam, taking care of it. Our producers are here as well, Nasreen and Puji as well, and also Appa Mariam. But this is just a beginning, because I don't think we've had these type of discussions, and particularly in terms of, yes, we may have it on the airwaves, on the studio, but in terms of trying to create further awareness, I think further public engagements are actually absolutely necessary. And I think we won't get all the answers here. Obviously, there are many other issues that have played out historically from what we've heard as well. And, we are not going to have agreement. But one thing we are in agreement is that genocide is unfolding right now as we speak in its most brutal form. And that needs to stop, and that needs to be our focus. And also at the same time, it's a message that needs to go out far and wide. We've seen the criticism that's been leveled against our very own government, the likes of Durko, I mean, Durko under Naledi Pandor, we've taken the matter to the ICJ with regard to Gaza as well. What is stopping the South African government from doing something similar as far as Sudan is concerned to hold those accountable and those that are complicit in this genocide? So there's a lot of work, and I think South Africa, we are in a good space. Particularly when it comes to freedom of speech as well, freedom of the press, freedom of the media. We need to utilize this. We need to utilize this opportunity to get this message out far and wide as media as well. And not only limited this to independent media like ourselves, to get the message out in the mainstream and to greater society in South Africa. So this is what we endeavor to do. Once again, we'd like to thank each and every one of you for making yourselves available. Please be well, please be safe. All the best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.